Welcome to HeartMind-ify. Before we start the show, just a reminder to share, rate, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it. And please give us a 5-star rating. It helps us beat the big tech algorithms.
I'm John Izzy. Change can be difficult for a lot of us, but when we understand what makes us tick, we develop a better understanding of who we are and begin a journey of discovering our best self. Join me for a free session at johnizzy.com.
And I'm Kim Cordy, creator of the Emotion Chef Framework, an emotion management tool. Thoughts drive emotions, and emotions drive thoughts, but it's our emotions that drive our decisions and behaviors. Find out more at kimcordy.com.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Knowing each other personally and socially for the past 10 years, Kim and John have joined forces, bringing years of experience and training, providing a platform for growth and personal development, along with a little humor. John is the heart, Kim is the mind, and together they are HeartMind-ify. Hello, Kim. How's it going today?
Today, it's going fantastic. Andrew
Good.
started his new job.
Nice.
I know. Medical insurance again. It's going to be covered for the most part. Like, we have to pay a nominal amount for, get this, medical, dental, and vision. And
Nice.
I haven't had vision and dental insurance. I can't even tell you. So
It's been 6 years for me. I mean, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. He seems happy.
Good. That's what's important.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. It was a busy weekend, but we've had just some crazy weather lately. So it's been kind of like I wanted to take the bike out at night, and you look to the right and there's a storm coming. So you go to the left and then the storm wraps around. So like the other night I got swamped and I was just soaking wet by the time I got home, but it was fun. So it's all good.
I can't. I can't even imagine. I was watching some old Seinfeld episodes. Do you ever watch Seinfeld? Did you?
Yeah, I love Seinfeld. My favorite was Arrested Development, though. But I did like
that's pretty
Seinfeld
funny.
a lot. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Well, I was watching this one episode, and I don't know if you remember it. George wants to break up with this girl. And before he can break up with her, she says she wants to break up. And she says, "It's not you, it's me." And he's like, "What? I was going to break up with you. And that's my line." And the whole thing was about the "it's not you, it's me." And I thought about it, like, for breaking up, yeah, because it makes it easier. You don't want to have any guilt. You don't want to have a big conversation. But is it most of life? It's not me, it's you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
People blame others left and right. And that was only blaming himself because it was convenient. The whole show is about not taking blame practically.
Oh, yeah. But don't you think blame is like, if I think of blame and what it means, it's like it's the number one defense mechanism of all time.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it what we all want to do? Take credit for anything that goes well and say it's not my fault if it doesn't. I think they have a name for that. I think it's called self-serving bias in psychology.
Yes, that is
self-serving bias. And so if you think about self-serve, right? Like you pick what you want.
Yep.
If you are at a buffet, if there's some stinky meats I don't like, I'm not picking them.
Oh, you and my sister both. It's like she smells everything as it comes out of the refrigerator to make sure it's still good. It's crazy.
But the point is that that's really what we see a lot in life, and it's part of our nature, right? Because we don't want to feel bad about ourselves.
Yeah, it's a great defense mechanism because it avoids awareness of your own flaws, right? But it's also a great attacking tool. It's a great way to attack people because you can blame other people and then you're like, I don't have to take any responsibility or offer any explanation because it's everybody else that's wrong. So it's an easy way to get out of a tight situation. It's an easy way to get reelected. It's an easy way to just, take off the responsibility of yourself and put it on someone else.
It's true, and you can control the situation more. If you blame someone, you're controlling that narrative, right?
Yeah.
I had a very, very strange experience once with this weekend seminar. It was hosted by Brian Clemmer and Associates, and I went just trying to improve myself. It's a self-improvement weekend, right?
Okay.
And one of the exercises was to take a very difficult situation and see where you were to blame in it. So just take a very, very painful situation. Easy one for me, right, is my divorce. And so they're
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
okay, where is your blame in that? And how it ended. Now, I was really upset because I thought I was not to blame. Like, I didn't do the leaving, I didn't do the cheating. It's not me. It's him, right?
Right, right.
And I was incensed. But when I backed off of that and really looked at my choices that led up to my marrying him, and even the decisions I made around our relationship, really brought to light the mistakes I made, where I was to blame, things that I could have done differently. So when I didn't just blame him, but when I was able to see my part in the demise of the relationship, it gave me tools to go into my next relationship differently. It's pretty powerful.
So it's a matter of taking responsibility in a way that helps you see where you have room in your personality and your reactions to things and the way that you talk to people can change, right? Because we're not always the best version of ourselves. So when we're not the best version of ourselves, how do we get back to that best, quote, best version? And it's to sometimes take responsibility of the things that you say and the behaviors that you choose. But it's easier to just avoid responsibility because that way you don't have to grow. That way you don't have to change. That way everything is status quo and you're always right and everybody else is wrong.
And there's one big thing that gets us in trouble all the time. And the reason why we blame others so much is our ego,
Oh, yes. How
right?
many times have we talked about taming the ego? Exactly.
Yeah. If you want to feel good about yourself, it's part of the ego. So when you blame someone else, you're making yourself superior. And that's what the social comparison theory is all about. So if it's like, it's not me, it's you, then you're putting yourself above them. And that doesn't really do you any good. What are you losing when you blame other people? Like, we know what you're getting, right? You're going to protect your ego. At least in your head, you're going to think you look good, even though everybody around you knows you have a tendency to blame other people. I think I told you this story before about when I was learning how to drive, and my my driver's test didn't go so well. The written I passed, and the actual driving part of it, I didn't pass. I was humiliated. Talking about an ego crush. You know how much I strive to do things right the first time.
Right.
And I got in the car with my mother and I'm like, it's your fault. You didn't let me drive the car enough. And she did let me drive more and we did pass. But I was protecting myself then. I didn't look at my mom and say, you know what? I should have reached out to you more to have you help me get this time in behind the wheel. I was 15, but still that tendency still stays. And even if you look at little kids, they don't ever want to be wrong, right? So what's wrong with being wrong?
There's nothing wrong with being wrong. To answer your question, when we're wrong and we can admit that we're wrong, then it opens us up to greater possibilities than the need to just blame people, right? Because it's a sense of admitting to yourself that, one, you don't have all the answers, and then it opens up the possibility to gain those answers, right? To go out and seek the answers that you might be unclear about. But as long as we continue to blame people, then we close ourselves off completely to any other conversation that's contrary to it. And it's almost like what we've talked about in our past, podcast. And part of that is the ability to recognize that you're not always right. And as you begin to see that you're blaming someone else for your actions, that's a great time to say, whoa, what am I doing here? Let me get out of this blame trap, because staying in it is just going to alienate everybody around you.
Right. Because how can they trust you? Think about trust. I can remember very vividly, I had a boss. I'm trying to remember what my title was. Anyway, his name was David. And David was out for a few days. I think he was out sick. And our boss said to me, well, David told me you didn't do this. I'm like, what? And there was something that was supposed to have gotten done. And he goes, yeah, David said you didn't do it. And I'm like, that's not true. He didn't even talk to me about it. And the fact that he had blamed me, I lost all trust for him.
Oh,
All
in a
trust.
second. In a second.
A nanosecond. I was so enraged because trust and responsibility, like my responsibility, everybody's learning how crazy I am. But for me, if I am told to do something and I don't do it, I feel horrible. Like I feel really badly. And for others to view me badly, of course my ego's there. I don't like that either. So when David came back, I called him on the carpet and he didn't even apologize. Our relationship was ruined right then and there, and I started looking for another job. And I couldn't work for him because I never knew when he was going to blame me again for something that made me look bad to others. So think about relationships that you're in. And if you're always blaming someone else, how can anyone ever trust you?
Yeah, it would be very difficult, or the other person would just have to be such a weak person emotionally that they just fall into that trap. I don't know how I could trust anyone that blames. We had a guy once in a corporate office that I worked at, and we had just moved into this new building, and they created this beautiful kitchen. I mean, it was absolutely gorgeous. It was a big kitchen, it had a huge counter, and it was really, really nice. And I don't know, it was about 2:00 in the afternoon, and I went in to grab a cup of coffee. And when I walked in, there was someone in there, and there was coffee all over the floor. And as soon as I walked in the door, he said, "Can you believe what someone did? They didn't even clean it up." And I just kind of said, well, that's pretty crappy. And so I grabbed some paper towels and I helped him clean it up. And I walked out of there and I thought, you liar. You knocked the coffee all over the place and you were blaming that unknown someone. And from that point forward, I noticed him doing that a lot. And finally it was like, you know what? I just have lost total respect for you. And it wasn't because he was a nice guy, but he just always blamed other people. And it was almost as if it was almost as if he was projecting. When we feel bad about something, and can't get rid of the bad feeling, we project that feeling onto others. Blaming others sets them up as bad, so we can then project our bad feelings onto them. And he practiced that to a T. And so there's definitely a need of growth when you see somebody that's constantly blaming and pointing that out. If you can get through to them, because there's some people that are just chronic blamers and they are never going to budge. But if you can break through to them, it just, a little bit, it just does so much for themselves.
In my classes, in my course rather, I should say, I teach automatic negative thoughts, ants. I talk about this all the time. And the blame is an ant species. And the point of this ant is to recognize it when you're doing it so you can stop the action. And that's easier said than done. We all do the blaming.
Absolutely.
Don't think it's human nature. I always go back to this, like, don't aim for perfection, but you can also try to understand how you think. And if you get in the process of catching yourself blaming, then you can stop yourself from doing it so much. And a way to help you be more secure in doing that is to improve your self-esteem. Don't you think? If you feel better about yourself, if you feel strong in who you are as a person, then you are going to be able to take on that blame, because you're going to say, hey, I'm a human. It's me, not you.
Yeah, it's a movement away from victimhood to a movement of empowering. One of the,
Correct.
you like that? I mean,
It's absolutely 1,000% true.
taking responsibility, I think, also allows us to live in the now and be responsible for our future actions, right? If we continue to blame, then our future actions are going to be blame. If we take responsibility, then our actions in the future are going to be met with taking responsibility and room for growth. It's almost that pattern of constant repeating the same behavior all the time. And that's what people are going to know you for. So if we start to take responsibility, we live in the now, and then we're responsible for our own actions in the future. And that's a good place to be at.
It is. And I'm going to tell you, I know for sure this is not an easy thing to do, especially if blame is your go-to automatic negative thought. If you really are so automatic in blaming others, turning that around, at first, it's very hard to do. I used to be quite the victim. I could go to Victims Anonymous.
Yeah, me too.
And when you try and stop doing it, at first it's like a struggle, and then it's almost relieving. The other day, I told you, I don't know if I told you this or not, but my friend said something to me and I didn't like what it was, but it was true. And I didn't want to take the blame, be honest about it. And I wanted to blame something else. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true. And I accepted responsibility instead of trying to redirect. It gets easier with time for you chronic blamers out there. It does get easier the more you practice. I guess that in the end, and this is what I strive to do, I know you strive to do, it's about making our lives the best that they can be. And blaming others limits us, and we can't see the limitations because we're so involved in trying to protect ourselves and to not look bad, and instead we look worse. And if we did anything today is to help someone who is a habitual blamer to see that it everybody else knows. It's not a big secret that you don't take
Exactly.
responsibility. And what would your life look like if you did? How do you think your life would be different? And I'm going to say you would have increased trust. We talked about this. You would feel better about yourself because you're taking ownership and responsibility. It's a certain level of maturity. You would have better relationships, and you would see positive outcomes just from taking on responsibility.
Well, yeah, and you would be letting other people in. Wow, imagine that. Actually letting somebody in as opposed to keeping them away or pushing them away or closing the doors and showing them no way to get in, right? No way to get inside. You would be allowing people to come in.
For sure, you would be showing vulnerability, and that's really difficult for some. But if
It is.
you start in small doses, there's a lot of power that comes with displaying it. It's not weakness, it's power.
Oh, you're absolutely right. So here's an interesting thing that I witnessed the other day while at the grocery store. I was walking up and down the aisles and noticed this mother who had two kids with her. One was about 5 and was walking next to the cart, and the other one, probably about 2, was in the cart facing his mother with his feet dangling out of the cart. In any event, the 5-year-old was walking down the aisle and knocking things off the shelf and then blaming the other brother in the cart. Now, there was no way that the boy in the cart was knocking anything off the shelf. Hell, he couldn't even reach the shelves. But I thought it was hilarious anyway, so I kept watching to see what the mother would do. And here was the interesting thing that happened. The mother finally stopped the cart and knelt down in front of the 5-year-old and said, "Why do you keep blaming your brother for knocking things off the shelf? I know it's you." And he said, "Because you pay more attention to him than to me." What was great about this moment is that the mother called the boy out and asked him why. This gave the boy an opportunity to explain himself. If she let this continue, then that type of behavior could become a behavior that goes unchecked and continue into the future. But she didn't let him get away with it, so kudos to her. That's what we need to do. We need to begin to question people's need to blame, especially if you care for that person. Because if you care for that person and you find them blaming all the time, then that person means something to you. Well, if that person means something to you, then, you don't have to call them on the carpet, but ask follow-up questions.
Actually, I do a little call on the carpet because
Yeah,
I like it if I'm called on the carpet
yeah.
because you if I am called blamed for something, it's like, okay, you're blaming me, so let's talk about that. What did I do? What could I do differently? And then when you start to talk about it, you realize, oh, well, it wasn't you, it was me. And there's nothing wrong with that, because if someone's blaming you and you know you're not to blame, and you say to them, how could I be different? It happens in our house. I mean, we're all human. And
Oh, it
so
happens here too.
and so you just talk about it, and then the truth comes out.
Yeah.
And then it's releasing, you help them to release what the issue really was, that they're frustrated or they're late or they didn't put to handle their time correctly, or they didn't do this or they didn't do that. And they're really kind of upset with themselves, but it's coming out towards you.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect example of that is putting the dishes into the dishwasher and the one person saying, "Well, why didn't you start the dishes?" "Well, you didn't go get dishwasher liquid detergent the last time you went to the store, so it's your fault that the dishes aren't being washed." Whoa, back up, guys. Stop blaming each other and try to find a resolution. Hey, how about a shopping list? Or hey, how about communicating? But it's easier to blame than it is to communicate, because sometimes people feel that if they communicate, they're going to open up other issues that unfortunately probably need to be opened up. So, communication is key, and taking the blame out of it lowers the defense mechanisms of the other person. So communicate, and be open to communication.
Yeah, it's true. So. Well, John, I don't blame you for ending this podcast because I think we've already beat up the blame.
We have.
Yeah. So today, it's not you and it's not me.
Nah, it's not. But I am going to end this podcast. So, Kim, listeners, thank you so much for joining us again on Saturday. And Kim, thank you. Have a great week.
You too, John. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. New shows are available every Saturday right here on HeartMind-ify.podbean.com or wherever you listen. Kim and I would like to thank each and every one of you for allowing us to be a small part of your life. Be kind to yourself and remember, our hearts tell the story, but our mind is the conductor.